Hello and welcome to Learning from Leaders. I'm Carmel Van Niekerk, and today we're going to be talking to Bilal Kathrada about his IT Varsity. Bilal has also developed the brands Xander and CompuKids, but specifically today we're talking about IT Varsity and the entrepreneur that he has created. Bilal is known for his kindness and how well he serves his customers, and even though his apps have won both local and international awards, he is the most humble person I have met, so I really look forward to this interview today. Welcome, Bilal. Today we are speaking to Bilal, who is the founder and the CEO of IT Varsity in Durban, South Africa. And so we'd like to welcome you today to listening to tech people who have basically been leaders in this industry. And Bilal, this is for some entrepreneurs and small businesses who basically are employees who have now gone out on their own to bring out an app or bring out software as a service. And so a lot of them have asked questions from leaders in the industry before in South Africa. So I've just put together a number of different speakers, yourself being one, so that they can learn from you and accelerate their journey and basically learn from your mistakes and what went well for you. So would you like to just share your story with us so that everyone can understand what IT Varsity is about and what Bilal's about?
Yeah, so I've been into coding from the time I was a kid, I think since about 10, 11 years old when I got my first computer, and I've been into coding, and I kind of took to it like a duck to water, and I loved it. Then came university, as with everyone, I went to university, got, worked towards my degree. But then I got a horrible shock, as I completed the end of my university career, where I started applying for jobs. And I found myself in what I call now the vicious unemployment cycle, where I couldn't get a job because no one wanted to hire me because I didn't have skills. And I couldn't get skills because I didn't have a job. So I was kind of, caught up in that cycle. And it took me a lot of research, many years of hard work, and, just asking around, asking people for advice to break that cycle. And then I finally got my first job as a software developer out in Johannesburg. So when I started my job, within 6 months, I was already on the ball. I was rolling with it. The company had given me some training and things. And that's when I started to think to myself that there are countless young people, and this is not just a South African problem, it's a global problem. There are countless young people who are in the same scenario, same situation as myself, that, go to university with the hope of getting some kind of employment afterwards, but they actually don't. Yeah. For the same reason, because they're not being equipped with the skills. So that's when I started running some tuition. I had a little outhouse, a little granny flat, you can call it, at the back of my house in Johannesburg. And I just put out an advert for people that want to learn technical skills, want to learn software development skills. And I didn't expect the influx from there. I mean, I got calls from people from...
Can I stop you? When you say you put out an advert, where did you put out the advert?
That time, social media wasn't such a big thing. This was around 2009, 2010. Okay. It was somewhat a big thing, right? But I just put out adverts in the local papers, in the classifieds of all places. And I started getting calls from all kinds of people, mostly people with degrees. And, people with computer science degrees, BCom degrees. And they started coming to my facility, and I would train them on full stack software development skills, and they would go out and get jobs. So, I mean, it just grew from there.
And did you see a big need in the beginning when you were just doing it from your house? I mean, how did you know that it was definitely a need? It was a need for you, but for other people?
Honestly, I didn't. I hadn't done any market research or anything of the sort. I just felt like this is a problem that I faced. Yes. Perhaps there are others. And I kind of just tested the market by putting out these adverts, and, it clicked right off the bat. And that was amazing. And I've never looked back since. It's been 10 years and it's been amazing.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you did something because it was a problem for you. So who is your ideal customer, or who was your ideal person back then, your ideal client back then? And is it still the same ideal client now?
No. So my ideal client then was graduates, people with existing degrees, and that's the kind of people that I worked with. But then over time, business changes, business evolves. Over time, I started getting lots of calls from people who were school leavers that didn't have an actual degree, and they said, well, they also want to get into careers in software development, app development, etc. But they didn't have the funds to go to university, or even the willpower. For whatever reason, they didn't want to go into university. So I started catering to that market. But then with that market, very quickly came the need for an accreditation, so because people want courses that are accredited. If you leave school, you want something that at least has a piece of paper. And myself being, having been in the academic space, I think that accreditations, a diploma, a certificate, or a degree that's recognized by some government-backed body is still important up till today. I'm not going to say it's not important. So what the next natural step in the life of my business was now to get accredited and to start offering the course to school leavers. So right now we got a blend of university graduates and school leavers, but the school leaver market is far more, in terms of numbers, there are far more of the school leavers as our customers now than the university graduates.
Okay. Do you think that's because South Africa's got such a high unemployment rate from school straight into the workforce? Do you think, why do you think it's changed like that?
I think it's changed because people are starting to wake up to the reality that university is not the only way of getting a job. When we were growing up and I was growing up, this was firmly entrenched in our thinking. You're going to go to school, you're going to go to university, and then you're going to get a job. But more and more people are realizing, with the fast pace of industry today, particularly technology, it's not that simple. It's not a linear process of school, university, and then getting a job. There are people that didn't even finish school that are IT entrepreneurs. If you look at a guy by the name of Nick Delosio, I think that's his name. But anyways, he's at 16, without having left school, he started a business which was subsequently bought out by Yahoo for like $30 million US. And recently, in the past few days, I was reading an article about a youngster that started a website to track the coronavirus spread across the world, and he's getting millions of views on that website.
Yes.
So with the tech space, it's not even necessary to have school, to have a matric. So more and more people are starting to realize this, that university is actually holding you back in terms of a tech career for two reasons. One is that they are not preparing people for the world of work, and not to badmouth universities, right? I'm a lecturer at some universities also, but they've just been slow to respond to the fast pace of industry. And the second thing is, a 3 or 4 year degree is just way too long to wait to get into a job. Even if a university is absolutely up to date at this present moment, in 4 years, they're already out of date. They're already lagging behind. So
specifically in the tech industry, yes. Yeah.
Very specifically, and and I'll come back to what you're saying. I agree with you that it's specific to the tech industry. So people are starting to realize that a better strategy for career is get out into the world, get a mini qualification, get into work, and then grow as you are working. The best place to learn the job is on the job. Yeah. And then, so there's this global shift towards micro qualifications rather than one large qualification. So coming back to what you said about being specific to the tech space, what's happening in recent times, Carmel, is that more and more businesses that are not traditionally technology driven are now being pulled into the technology space, and they are becoming essentially tech businesses. Uber is a taxi business, But imagine Uber without its technology. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Schools. Now with this whole coronavirus thing, with the schools being closed out of necessity, more and more schools are scrambling to adopt technology. So schools are shifting into the technology paradigm. So more and more businesses that are not traditionally tech businesses are now becoming tech businesses to remain competitive. So this drive towards getting our young, dynamic, ready workforce out there has become a global movement. And I think that's the need that we are trying to fulfill as IT Varsity.
Yes, especially even now with the coronavirus. All companies are now wanting to find out what webinars they should use and what platforms are best. And sure, it actually just shows you how, I mean, I'm dealing with specifically South Africa here, but how far behind we are in relation to the rest of the world in terms of tech. So if people are developing apps, and I know you developed an app and I think sold it off, and if they're developing software as a service, like what would be your biggest suggestion to them, or your greatest insight that you've had? Let's go, for example, the app that you created. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that and the greatest insight that you can give people from that.
Yeah, I mean, just like with IT Varsity, that app was built in response to a challenge that I was facing. So while I was working on my IT career, while I was skilling myself up in the years that I couldn't get a job in the IT space, I was tutoring kids. I did some teaching and some tutoring, maths and physics. So there was a particular group of, I think, grade 6 kids that I was tutoring after hours. And what I realized was that these kids knew the concepts. I didn't have to teach them the concept. They understood the concept, but they didn't know how to apply the concept. So they were in need of worksheets. So I would just go out and ask friends and teachers and look at textbooks and go online and look for worksheets to give to them, but it just wasn't enough. And I think that's a dilemma a lot of teachers face. There isn't enough, there aren't enough resources out there. So what I did was, I said, how can I overcome this? So I wrote some, and this is weird, right? I created some Excel spreadsheets that actually generated sums in different sections that the kids could fill, and it would even tell the kids if the answer was right or wrong. And so they started working on Excel rather than pencil and paper, and that was amazing because they started enjoying that. From Excel, I decided to go to a website. I made it into a website, and from there, a friend recommended that I make an app out of it, and so I made an app. Once the app was ready, I started using it, with my own students. I put it out there, and then the Vodacom, and this is something which is weird. The Vodacom App Star Awards came about, and a friend suggested that I enter my app into the App Star Award. And I'm like, who's gonna even consider my app, And reluctantly, I put it out there, and it wasn't even polished, It was
like minimum viable product out there.
Exactly, it was an MVP, and then I put it in. And next thing, I'm getting a call from Vodacom that my app won the South African round of the competition. I'm like, wow. Okay, that was amazing. So yeah, it won the South African round, and it came third in the international round of the competition.
Sure.
So
well
yeah, thanks a lot. So I think you're seeing that theme already twice in my life now. One is with the app, and the other is with IT Varsity. I identified a problem, and I solved that problem, and I found business success in that. And I think the biggest and the most successful businesses in the world started because somebody solved the problem.
Absolutely.
Facebook solved the problem. Apple solved the problem.
Yeah. So then what would your insight be for someone who is developing an app? I mean, what would your biggest suggestion or advice to someone who's taking an app and bringing it to market be? If you had to have just one thing that you could tell people just to skip a hurdle of many years that you learned and get to the end, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's look at the world around you, right? In your personal capacity as well as in your professional capacity, and identify a pain point or identify a number of pain points, things that cause you a lot of inconvenience, things that are slow, that you wish could have been expedited. Once you find that, make a list of them and start identifying potential solutions for that, and find the one that the most potentially viable to go to market with. And trust me, if you are in a profession, let's say you are an accountant and you are having a challenge, there's a very good chance that other accountants are having the same challenge.
Absolutely.
So find a solution and put it out there, and you will succeed.
So I have a question. A lot of people who are taking an app to the market are going to obviously need funding. When do you start funding yourself? When do you start asking for investment? Like, when is the point? Like, how did you fund yours in the beginning?
Okay, so what I'm about to tell you has been my experience, but there really isn't a right or wrong answer here, right? So I'll tell you one time that I accepted funding and things went horribly wrong, and what happened afterwards. So in the early days of IT Varsity, I partnered. Well, I got funding from a venture capitalist, and this was basically seed funding, and everything was great to begin with. Everything looked great. It looked nice on paper, but within a couple of months, say 3, maybe 4 months down the line, I started realizing that there's a major mismatch between my vision and my funder's vision. So there wasn't anything like, somebody was trying to do someone else down. It wasn't anything like that. These are great guys, and I still maintain a good friendship with them. But the problem is there was a mismatch in vision. They were astute business people. For them, it was business above everything else. On the other hand, I look at myself as being part capitalist, part socialist, right? So for me, it was more service to humanity first, and then the money will come. And that's still my basic principle with which I run my businesses. So there was always this conflict. For them, it was higher costs, higher prices, lower quality, more students, and it became, over time, it became a bit of a friction between myself and them, and eventually we decided to part ways. And the tough part was that the business wasn't at that stage self-sustaining, so it collapsed, and I pretty much walked away with nothing, and it took me 4 or 5 years to recover from that. The second round, what I did was I went back to a friend of mine who's also a venture capitalist, and he manages like hundreds of millions of rands worth of VC funds. And he gave me the best advice that I ever got. He said to me 2 things. He says, number one, if I give you funding at an early stage in your business, if I give you seed funding, you are giving me the bargaining chip. I'm going to take a bigger share of your business, and I'm going to dictate to you how your business is going to be run. That's just normal. It's just human nature, because the earlier the stage, the higher the risk, the higher the percent you're giving the VCs, and the bigger the influence they're going to have on your business. So in a nutshell, what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing him here, is that if I'm going to give you funding, it's charity at this stage. But do this for me. Go back, use sweat equity, and this is what's worked for me, Carmel. Use sweat equity. In other words, put in the hard work, put in the grind, develop a solution, start selling it. The moment you get your first few clients, come back to me, and then you'll be in the bargaining, you'll have the bargaining chip, you'll be in the bargaining position, and you will dictate the terms, because now you're not asking for funding on an untested model. You're asking for funding on a model that's already going, already tested, and that funding, I know to a large extent, will be used for growth rather than just for establishing your business. And I've done that, and I took his advice to heart. It was tough. I must admit, it was very tough, but it's been rewarding. I had to take a job. I had to do consulting on the side, and mornings and evenings I would work on my business. And over 3-4 years, we got it out there. We got our first sales going, and guess what? Now I don't need that funding any longer.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank you, Mr. Man, for your advice. I don't need your funding, because I'm generating the funds from sales now.
Absolutely.
My customers are funding. Yeah.
Can I make a comment there? I think your first point of, basically the difference between an investor and the entrepreneur is that the entrepreneur is generally working from passion and their heart. They've built something because they know it's needed. But the investor is obviously wanting to have a return on their investment. It's just, there's always going to be that clash, I think. So I think it's so right what you're saying in the second one. But just in terms of exactly what you're saying, taking out a minimum viable product and showing that it works before you ask for investment. A lot of people ask me to help them do their sales in the beginning, like get their first merchants live or get the first app users so that they can see that everything works. But they don't have the money to pay, and they want to get the investment first. And I want to say no, like show at least 10 to 20 working solutions. It's a very different conversation to have, to ask for investment once you've actually shown there is a product that's out there and there will be some demand for it. And it seems to be a problem time and time again. And I don't understand. That's why I'm so glad you're saying this now, because you don't even need the investment if it actually works. If it's really a good product, it will have it will sell itself after you've proved it,
Yeah. And I think, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs fall flat on their faces is they often create excellent products, but they are afraid of taking their products out into the world. They're afraid of that hustle. And trust me, it's tough. You literally have to go and beg people to start using your product. You have to give it away for free. Sometimes you have to even pay them to use your product. But no, I'm serious. It's been weird for us. I mean, the number of people that we put on our system and just gave away for free. But once you've got your first few testimonials and people look at your product, they're going to give you feedback. That's the first thing. Don't be afraid of that feedback. Yes. Take the feedback seriously and make the changes and put it out there. So those first few people that are getting it for free, they're doing you a bigger favor than you think, because they're going to give you honest feedback. They're also they understand that I'm getting this for free, so I'm not going to be, I can't expect too much. But also when that product is perfected and they are done using it, then they are obviously going to give you a testimonial. Yes. And when you put that testimonial out on your website, nobody cares that the person that's giving the testimonial didn't pay for the product. The fact is, they are real people that used the product, liked it, and they were happy with it. I mean, if you look at a number of entrepreneurs, that's how they started off, hustling. Absolutely. One person at a time.
There are quite a few app companies in South Africa who have given the first 20 or so merchants or end users the product for free for life. So they're saying, you trusted me enough to start it in your business, because sometimes it does interfere with the actual business if things go wrong or there's bank reconciliations, if it's a financial product. And, just allowing that for the rest of their lives because they've taken the risk in the beginning. And like you say, you always get to have someone who just gives you feedback, and honest feedback, especially like with your app. Some parts of the app you think are amazing, and the person who's actually using the app has never even gone to that tab in the app. They don't even care. And there's always been that thing when people are developing, as opposed to people in the actual market and the end user. There's the same as between an entrepreneur and an investor, there's such a difference. So I agree. I think that's such a good point that you should give it for free.
There's one other thing that I can add here, and this is based on the whole concept of disruptive innovation, right? So Clayton Christensen, he's the guy that came up with this concept of disruptive innovation, and I recommend all entrepreneurs to read his book. So basically, disruptive innovation is not something that happens overnight. It happens over years. You'll find a company that's a relative unknown, and for years and years and years, they're operating beneath the radar, almost like these little borers that are eating up at your furniture. And then suddenly, everything, the status quo collapses, and then you've got this company that's suddenly out there shining, and everybody's like, wow, overnight success. But it wasn't an overnight success. It took sometimes 5, 6 years, 10 years to get to where they were, when suddenly, they became a threat to the incumbents. I mean, look at Google, right? I think Google only became profitable after 10 years. But in in the meantime, what were they doing? They were adjusting to the market and innovating until they came to a point where the market was ready for them. And then boom, suddenly Google is this overnight success that took 10 years to happen.
Yes. So tell us a bit about then if I can just move along, what IT Varsity, like why, what is the best element of IT Varsity in your opinion? Like why would people even come there now?
I think the main thing, Carmel, is people want you to be real with them. People don't want to be given false promises. There's a word to use, BS. I'm just going to use the initial. People don't want to be BS, and I think with IT Varsity, it's embedded into the DNA of our company and how we do things, and it's something we remind ourselves on a daily basis. Quality in everything we do, and service, quality and service always. And we pride ourselves. I'm not saying we're the best in the world or anything, but there's one thing that you can always expect from us is that we will go out of our way to serve our students. And for us, a student is not just another number. For us, a student is a friend. And I make it a personal habit of contacting every student myself, even though our student numbers are gone so big now that it's difficult to do so. But I take a personal interest in our students, and we keep the student to teacher ratio quite small, so that there is an intimate relationship that's built up. So I think if you ask me what is the strength, what is our secret, it's no secret at all. It's just that we care for people.
Yes.
We care for our students, and we take a personal interest in every single one of our students. And when it comes to quality, I mean, it naturally flows from there. We're never happy with the quality that we are putting out. We're always trying to outdo ourselves. And that's
I think
how
that
we do it.
they always say that the business that cares the most actually wins. Because, and like you're saying, just being authentic with people, I think that personal touch is so needed in this day and age. Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, it's not easy. It's always tempting to go big numbers and corporate, but and look, and I must admit, right, being in the position that we are is not cheap. It's expensive, to look after students the way we do. It's tempting sometimes to just increase the ratio 1:1 teacher to 100 or 200 students. Let me put it this way: it's the long game. There's no quick wins here, and we're not here for a quick buck. It's a long game, and we are ready for the long haul. And it's something that Gary Vee says that I took to heart. He says, sorry.
No, carry on. What does Gary Vee say?
So he said that the one saying of his really got to me. He says, if you're not doing it because you're passionate about it, then you're just keeping the place for somebody who is, and that's going to come and replace you. And we live by that.
Okay. So yours is basically a 12 to 18 month course, hey, on how to develop an app. And by the end of the course, they are able to launch their own app on iOS and Android.
Yeah, it's actually technically a 12-month qualification. Okay. But there are students that finish it in 18 months, and we're lenient on that because we understand life happens.
Yes. So if I have a question, if any of those students who've now developed their app in 12 months want to be a successful business person with their app, what advice would you give those students now to launch that app? What to make it successful?
Okay, I would recommend to them what I know best, and that is get your MVP. Well, firstly, solve a problem. Secondly, don't look for a quick buck. Don't think about getting rich overnight. If you want to start making money immediately, and people's circumstances are like that sometimes, things are tough at home. They don't have the luxury of starting their own business and waiting for 3-4 years before they see an income. I say to them, go and get a job. And while you're doing your job, spend time mornings and evenings on developing your product, but understand that the best products take time. The most enduring success takes time. And I also, it's something that's integrated in the entrepreneur course. Hence, we call it app and entrepreneur. It's app and entrepreneur combined into one. We call it entrepreneur because a lot of these lessons are part of the curriculum. I mean, I realized earlier on that if I'm going to make a course that's really effective, then it can't be just the technical aspects. It's going to be doing my students a disservice. So we brought in a lot of these entrepreneurial aspects that we are talking about right now. So it's throughout the course, but at the end of it, it's that solve a problem, put out an MVP, don't worry about money right now, focus on quality, money will come later.
Okay, that's very good advice. So IT Varsity, and the course is called Entrepreneur. Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Solve a problem, generally the problem you've had, and set out a minimum viable product, then only start looking for funding, and care the most in your industry, and money will come after that.
Money will come.
That's what I'm understanding.
Chase the quality. Yeah, never chase money. As my dad used to always tell me, never chase money, always chase quality, the money will come.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Do you have anything else you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I think in these difficult times that we're going through, with the coronavirus thing that's going on, my appeal to anybody and everybody: do what you can to make someone else's life easier, to make someone else's life better. We're all concerned about ourselves and our families, but there are others out there that that need help. I think this is a good time to get that habit. It's something that I've always been taught, that the more you care for others, the more you enjoy success. The greatest leaders, whether it's in business or anywhere, are those that care for others. So, if you want to be successful in business, learn to care for others, and you will be successful.
Okay, I have one last question, and then I'll let you go. What has been the biggest?
Sure,
what has been the biggest tech constraints for starting off your own business in South Africa? Again, if someone's launching an app or software as a service, what's the biggest tech constraints in South Africa?
I think there are a number of them. I can't tell you which is the biggest one. Okay. For most businesses, now I'm speaking in general, for most new startups, the biggest constraint is getting people with the right skills, because there aren't enough software developers out there. There aren't any app developers. So if you're not a developer yourself and you want to start a business, your biggest challenge is going to be finding a developer. Now, I didn't have that problem because fortunately I am a software developer, so I just use my own skills. But I can understand a lot of people will be having that issue. So that was the biggest challenge. The other challenges are, to a lesser extent, is the high price of data, the lack of good role models out there and mentors in the South African space. I think that's been a big challenge for me. I know I got colleagues and friends out in other countries, like in India and in Silicon Valley. And for them, there's so much of help readily available. I mean, you can find any number of mentors. In this country, it's a bit of a challenge. So for me, that's been a challenge. But from a tech space, I think it's definitely the skills.
Do you think a lot of people, I know a lot of big companies, they outsource their tech, their dev to India and other Asian places? What do you think about that? Would you ever do that, or would you always want to source your developers locally?
Okay, I will not ever do that for two reasons. One is I've seen that there's very limited success in outsourcing to other countries, number one. Number two, the guys that develop in these other countries try to get you locked into their ecosystem.
Yes.
So when a company goes out and gets work developed, these guys, and I think it's deliberate, they develop the thing in such a way, and they make it so complicated that it's very difficult to move away from them and into another company if you decide to move away. So there's kind of a vendor lock-in. And obviously, I know a lot of people that have spent a lot of money getting work developed out there, and they never really got what they wanted. And I think this is very potentially destructive for a startup, because you as a startup entrepreneur have certain ideas about what your product should look like, and that's what's unique about you and your business. Because I mean, if you're starting an e-commerce business, for example, what's unique about you that separates you from Amazon or from any number of companies out there? It's something that you are breathing into this business that makes you unique. When you outsource that work to an overseas company, you're immediately losing that advantage.
Yes.
Because they're going to develop according to what they think is best, and what they think is best is what's the cheapest, quickest, most efficient way of getting it out there. So they're going to kind of nudge you in a direction. They're going to tell you, well, you know what, this is going to be too expensive to do, so maybe cut this out, put it in later. So what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a very generic looking solution that's no different to anybody else. So that's the one set of reasons why I wouldn't develop out there. The second is, obviously, it's my personal mission to empower South African kids,
yes,
to empower South Africans, and to transform the tech sector in this country. If India could do it, we can do it. And
yes,
they did it by upskilling their young people, and we're going to do that. We're going to upskill our young people and start up this entire tech ecosystem in this country. And I think within a couple of years, you're going to see it.
I like your vision.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. It's been so good to learn from you, and also just to understand your heart behind your business. It's so nice to know that people are authentic out there. And I mean, for me, my biggest thing is just to help people launch their business. I'm often talking to people who are tech, and they genuinely speak a different language to the marketing people. And I've always been that person in between, like, the training person in between. So it's so nice to know that you actually are both tech and, you're taking it to market. So I think a lot of people who are launching their apps and their software can learn a lot from what you've just said today. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I hope that lots of people get benefit from what I'm saying.
Yes. Thank you, Bilal.
Thanks, Carmel, for this opportunity.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Okay. You too. Bye.